I would like to call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Redmond City Council held on Tuesday, September 12th, 2023, commencing at 6:30 p.m. The community can attend council meetings in person, view meetings on Facebook Live, YouTube, RCTV, Comcast Channel 21 or 321, Ziply Channel 34, or listen live by calling 510-335-7371. Council members in attendance are Councilmember Stewart, Councilmember Anderson, Council President Forsyth, and Council Vice President Kritzer. This meeting is being held to conduct candidate interviews. Kim Dietz, staff liaison, will introduce the Landmark Commission candidate, Ms. Margaret Doman.
Thank you, Mayor Bernie. I'm Kimberly Dietz with Long Range Planning and Community Development. I'm here tonight to introduce Margaret Doman. Margaret has applied for the Landmark Commission position, which is the local seat, a person that lives in Redmond and has a strong interest in history. Margaret brings to the city many years of public and private experience, as well as nonprofit and volunteerism. Some of that volunteerism includes serving on the City Council and our Planning Commission. And she also brings to an education in history. So she'll be a great contribution to the Landmark Commission. With that, I'd like to introduce Margaret.
Hi. Would you like to say a few words, Margaret, this evening?
Sure. I guess your utility bill mailing pays off because my husband pays the bills, but he put down this little flyer that said, these are the open positions to apply for. And so I thought, oh gosh, that looks like something that's fun. And I guess I'm drawn to this, yes, partly for building community and service, but it's kind of personally getting re-involved with the city that has changed a lot since I was on the city council. And also, I was a history major, and I have served on two historical societies, Redmond Historical Society and the Cannon Beach, Oregon Historical Society. So, history major is still here, I guess, and so I thought it would be kind of fun, and as I mentioned, that it doesn't have the political ramifications that was challenging on the council and less so on the Planning Commission. But anyway, so ask questions, whatever you have.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We're really excited to have you here. Perhaps a little overqualified, but that's all right. Love that you're still willing
I might age out, though.
No. I love that you're willing to serve the community after being on the council as well. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you for the first question. I appreciate that. With your extensive history in the city, what is your favorite landmark?
Ooh, well, that's a good question. I guess the Justice White House. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Great. Questions? Council President.
Thank you. So what kind of ideas do you have to bring forward to historical preservation, and how are we doing, and what's your assessment of how we're doing and where you see us going in the future?
Boy, I'm really glad you asked that. Okay, and when I interviewed with the mayor, and you guys do the budget in the end, is that I'm really interested in seeing new acquisitions for the historical preservation. And I was looking at my resume because I don't remember the dates all that well. But I was on the Redmond Historical Society from founding through 2001 or 2, I think. And sometime after that, I testified, and I think Carol Helen may have been on the Planning Commission at that time. I came in and testified regarding is it 12 or 18 historical structures that are on the county and I believe federal. How many? 16. 16. Good. Okay. And those were ones that we, as the Historical Society, had identified and were promoting and so forth. And so I testified and helped write up and got through to the planning staff the adoption of this. And to my understanding, there hasn't been any acquisitions of more, because there's a lot more buildings down there that should be possibilities. And it is a budget issue because it takes staff time to be able to start that historical process, which goes to from the city to the county to the state. And I'm not sure, did it go to the feds as well or not, or just state?
Just the state.
Just the state. Okay. Well, nonetheless, so that's a little bit better. So that is really what I would like to do, and I would be happy to go knock on doors and help research and work with the Historical Society as to what else might be out there. So, but it is budget, and that's coming up in December, so please remember that. And the other thing, I have had a lifelong interest in Indigenous people, and I think that, as I understand it, that this commission is a subset of the Design Review Board. And so anything that goes on the Bear Creek or the Sammamish Slough, please, I am very, very interested in making sure those areas are preserved. And I guess the third area that I did notice on the utility billing insert, it said that this makes recommendations regarding promoting, protecting, and incentivizing and improvements. So frankly, the third budget item is incentivizing improvements for these 16 buildings to upgrade their paint jobs on the right historical color, to do whatever else that needs to be done. Because my guess is nothing's been done since the early 2000s on this. I'm not sure, I haven't checked. But so anyway, I would like to be an advocate. I'd like to help. I have Historical Society connections somewhat. And I think that they would be quite pumped to do this as well. So that's what I'd like to do. So
Great.
please think of me in December.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for our candidate? I think you very thoroughly answered the questions. I don't know if the last two, Councilman, did you want to say something, Councilman?
I don't have a question. I'll just say, look forward to affirming and welcoming you back into service here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting for me.
Hearing you speak, you are the perfect candidate for the role. So thank you for applying.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Council Vice President?
I thought of a question, although I felt that you did really cover a lot. But I will also echo that I'm really excited that you've applied for this role. I think it's great to have your perspective on this commission. One question that I'm curious about is, the way that we think about things as historic changes as history continues. And even I know I've been in discussions in the past with the Redmond Historical Society about how do we document things that happened in kind of the rise of the tech world in Redmond as historical, right?
Let me talk to you about that.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so I'm just curious how you think about where you draw the line on what counts as historic versus places that have been a part of our history but may change as we change as a community. I'm sure there's the technical reasons and technical definitions that you'll use on the commission, but just curious what your philosophy is. Maybe it's too deep a question.
Wow, I don't know how things have changed, and yet they have history. And so how do you balance that out when somebody wants to do something new? So let's take my Justice White House, in quotes, that, theoretically, something could come in there that is more modern and techie or whatever, but fortunately, it is preserved on the historical preservation. And I think that's why we have a Historical Preservation Commission. And so I don't think that the new use in that case should happen because it's already law. So I don't know if that helps. But I guess in terms of, actually interesting, you guys are going to be talking about, I guess, comp plan coming up. And of course, I was of the era when Microsoft came in. I was on the Planning Commission when we did the zoning with the city of Redmond. It was unincorporated King County at the time, and we did a joint session with the city of Bellevue, the Planning Commission, and I was chairing the Redmond Council at the time, Planning Commission at the time. And we went through a very detailed where you draw the line and what the uses are. And then subsequently, I was on the city council after that when Microsoft bought the property and came in for rezone. And so I kind of brag that I'm the grandmother to Microsoft. But anyway, high tech, and I was also very involved later with the Puget Sound Regional Council. I was, I don't know if you saw my resume, but I was very involved down there, mostly in transportation. But I was a big supporter, an early supporter of the urban growth boundary. And as a result, things have changed. The comprehensive plan, the vision, whether there's an example change of the apartments downtown. Frankly, the stories, we didn't envision ourselves to be Bellevue, but more like Kirkland, and we had a 6-story limit, as I recall. And I think that's changed a little bit. And this is part of progress, and this is how things go on. And so I guess I'm open to new changes and whatever, because I am a believer in the urban growth boundary and the necessity of affordable housing and so forth. So I don't know if that answers your question, because regarding historical structures, I don't have an exact example.
Thank you for those thoughts. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you all very much. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. Thank you. And look forward to you being on the consent agenda next week. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes,
And I'm leaving town
absolutely.
the next day. Yes.
And if you can attend in person, this goes for all our other candidates as well. Can't attend in person, we'll swear you in there. And if it's not in your schedule, then we'll make sure you get sworn in later. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Yes, it's fun. Thank you.
Great. All right. Next, we have Caroline Chapman will introduce our Parks, Trails, and Recreation Commission candidate of Gregory Laird. No, not much transition time. Sorry about that.
That's A-okay.
And do you go by Gregory or Greg?
Greg.
Greg. That microphone's a little sketchy, so if you just leave it on, it's probably the best course of action.
Great.
On
Awesome.
when it's green.
Don't worry.
Wonderful. Well, I will turn it over to Ms. Chapman, who can introduce our candidate.
Yes, thank you. I'm very excited to introduce Greg Laird, and he has applied to be a part of the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Commission, taking over the seat of one of our commissioners who unfortunately had to move out of the city. He brings a really unique and perspective as both a dog walker, horseback rider, kayaker, biker, and just an avid user of our parks. In his professional life, he is a water resource engineer and has worked on park improvements in different cities across our region. And we are really looking forward to having his expertise on commission. And just as an aside, he has been attending as a guest to the meetings and so is ready to hit the ground running.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Would you say a little bit about yourself or a little bit of why you applied to the council, and then we'll move on to their questions.
Real quickly, every day I take my dog on one of the city's trails and across one of the city's parks, and kind of as an engineer, I'm kind of stuck as I think of things and look at things and see how the light rail is coming in, and it disrupted one of the trails I used to use, but there's an opportunity there to have a stronger connection into the East Lake Sammamish Trail. I know that King County Metro is going to replace their trunk line, and it might disrupt the park I use or kind of visit almost every day. The Stroll, small little park. It's a great little place to kind of relax. It's different than a lot of others, and it's just a nice little gem. And so I have that curiosity. I want to know more what's going on. I want to, where I can, provide my observations, maybe my input, maybe help with a recommendation for all of the staff and council to help us move forward.
Great. Thank you so much. Questions? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you so much, Mr. Laird. And it's clear from the materials that we received, you also actually have quite a bit of experience serving on commissions and in different projects, civic projects all around, I'll say, the greater East Side. Have you had a chance to take a look at the park plan?
Briefly, one of the drafts, particularly I think it was Chapter 4 on parks, and in part, I'm new to what all the different facilities the city owns, operates. And so recognizing those that I visited over, this is like the mid-'80s, the first time I saw some of the parks, grass lawn, and Idlewood Beach, but there are so many things that the city has. Some are more developed than others. And so, from my standpoint, it was fun to see the goals kind of enumerated. And, kind of perked my interest as to what's it mean to develop an environmental education center? Wow, that's nice. That can help a lot of our kids know more about science, technology, help with a variety of other people who want to volunteer for the city, and just, regardless of age group, it could be of interest to a lot of our citizens. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I'm going to guess you're a little bit detail-oriented, so I'm curious, in the city of Redmond's parks and trail system, where is your favorite detail within that system?
Detail. Ooh, that's a good kind of, my favorite park is Downtown Park now. It hits a lot of things. There's a stage for, both planned and impromptu activities. It's got a little water feature. It's very relaxing. It has an open space that allows for, festivities and celebrations of different sorts. I like public art, in all honesty. So one of the things that caught my interest is when the community center needed to be torn down, there's a series of sculpture in there. I think it's the Zeeble trio. And I used to love to kind of interact with my dog in there, or chuck her the ball when dogs were allowed, and go through the portal and just things of that nature. But I like, to see public art. So I think that would be a good thing, obviously, to protect, but maybe to increase. Those of you who walked in the sidewalks of Portland can see, phrases from historic speeches or poetry in the sidewalk. I like the Redmond Central Connector, where there was just some phrases about, horses and distance, and just thought-provoking. And we painted, the sidewalk and the parking lot. But so those are subtle ways that you can just make that little path, that couple block walk. Maybe it's not, an intentional recreational activity, but much more enjoyable. And so that's what I really like, the public art. Poised for takeoff. I think that's a great sculpture. And, what I like about it is you see it from different approaches, and it is kind of off the ground. And so, yeah, it's what I like. Sorry.
That was a lot of detail. Thank you. I appreciate it. Got the response I was looking for. Thank you.
Oh, well.
Thank you. Council President?
Thank you. You had me at more money for public art. You had me at that in general. So I'm looking forward to you serving and joining us. So what would be so you already said your favorite park. So how would you work towards more inclusion in our parks and trails?
Well, I saw on the list of goals in the park plan that one of them was to think more about playground facilities for those kids who are disabled. Well, we have so many more age groups who are, and physical, mental disabilities. There are a lot of things we could do. In the stroll, right by the stairs up to 85th, or from 85th, there's some plants called lamb's ear. You may not have noticed it, but I remember it from an arboretum where I grew up on the East Coast, in an area that was called a garden for the blind, an intentional selection of plants that had meaning. They had different textures, different fragrances, or they were used for different things. And so I don't know what's going to happen to the stroll when the sewer comes through, but, it's already got a nice vibe to it. You could add, with a little bit of instruction, a little bit more about those things. What's unique about them? And, so that from a, visual disability, that's one. I've seen several people in wheelchairs along the trails. That's great. I don't know how the parking is in all the parks or the restroom facilities in that regard. Obviously need to make sure we do attend to that. But, I've told some people I would just like to see something of that nature, because, I work with little bits, and some of my clients, I guess we call them, have visual impairment, and, it's a gray area. And just even seeing the sidewalks or our trails with greater demarcation, bright white line, a little texture different, can help lead them along the way.
You are just hitting all of my boxes, so love
I'm
it.
a little detail
Love
oriented,
it.
so you can cut me off, so we can talk for a while.
It's
So
great. The
sorry about
ADA
that.
improvements for our parks is one of my passion points, so you totally nailed it.
Thank you.
Ms. Kritzer, thank you.
Just a follow-up question on issues around equity and inclusion. I'm curious, as a Parks Commissioner, how would you work to be able to gather different perspectives? Because I know that each of us live in the city and different parts of the city, and sometimes that really gives us our perspective on, I know the trails that I love to walk on, and I know, for example, I have young children, so I'm often obsessed with playgrounds. But at the Parks Commission, it's really part of the job to be able to get perspectives of what are all these needs, and especially in a city that has a growing number of people from all over the world who've come to live here. Yep. How do you think about how you would, as a Parks Commissioner, be able to gather that feedback?
Well, we already have a couple festivals that occur every year from some large groups that are very new to our city community culture. And so it's great to, one, be able to accommodate, the variety of activities, whether they're simple runs or great festivals that extend over the weekend. What caught my mind earlier was with the Senior Center, Community Center, the curiosity was, I wonder if they're going to have folk and square dancing. It's just something, because with all the cultures, they all have their own ways of dancing. They all have their own foods and things of that nature, and we get some of that. But just to be able to, have that activity to bring them together, give them a sense, but also for those of us who might be curious just to participate. As a senior center, it's just a nice way to exercise. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It just reminded me in college, I took Eastern European folk dancing. It was really quite fun. So I would enjoy that kind of dance class. Well, thank you so much. You obviously, I see smiles all around. So we will see you next week if you can be here for swearing in. And if not, we will swear you in another day. But thank you so much for taking the time today to interview.
Pleasure.
Fantastic. Thank you, of course, once again, for your great questions. Thank you. Thank you. And then last but not least, we have one more candidate. We have, Kara Simon, Chair of the Library Board of Trustees, will introduce our candidate for the Library Board of Trustees, Erin Halabi. Thanks for being here today.
And thank you. I'd like to introduce Erin to the council. Erin's a longtime Redmond resident, and he's spent over 40 years working in communications-oriented jobs, such as working as a reporter for Microsoft's newsletter, which Melissa will tell you, communication is super important for this particular position. Erin sees the library as a place of community, learning, exploration, and personal development, and has clearly shown that he's motivated to be on the board and to help the library. And with that said, I'd love to turn it over to Erin.
Well, thank you, Kara, for that nice introduction. Thank you, Mayor Burney. Thank you, council members, for having me here tonight. It's a real honor. I've lived in Redmond for 27 years now. Came from Detroit, where I was born and raised. And I love living in Redmond. It's got so much to offer. I love the parks and trails, so the gentleman before me was talking about that. I love the community events, the Derby Days, Redmond Lights. I think the schools are great. I love the cultural and arts opportunities in the city. But I think most of all, and I think you'll not be too surprised to hear, I love the library most of all. And when I came here, I have to admit, I wasn't terribly well read. And I then became busy enjoying family life and building a career. But as the years went on, I found myself with more time, and part of the way that I filled that time was by reading. And I found that the library was just a tremendous source of information and content, and it was really enriching for me. And it helped me kind of connect more thoroughly with people that I care about, my parents, close friends who were already very, involved readers, more so than I ever was. So I kind of connected more deeply with them, and so the library was responsible for that, and so I'm greatly appreciative for that. But that's just me. For the broader community, people come to the library for a lot of different reasons, to solve problems, to advance themselves in their careers, to seek out information about a new hobby, just to learn generally, and maybe, like me, to become better read. So for all those reasons, I find the library to be kind of an essential resource for the community. And equally important, I think, is that it's a communal place. The library offers a lot of courses and events that bring people together of various backgrounds and from various places, and that's important, whether people are taking an ESL course, for example, or getting math tutoring, or seniors are in a meetup event to make friends. It's just a great, warm, welcoming place. And I'm very honored to be considered for this role. And if I'm placed on the board, I'll do my best to support all the great things that the library is doing, to expand its reach, and to ensure that it continues to be an important resource for the many people that are lucky to live here in Redmond. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for our candidate? Ms. Anderson?
I'll change this up a little bit.
Sure.
What is your favorite book series?
Oh, goodness, that's a tough question. It's almost as hard as asking me who my favorite child is. And that's actually easier because it's Dana, my 21-year-old. and that's easy because she's an only child. Favorite books. There's a book that I think is pretty close to the top of my list. It's called Stoner by John Williams. It's not about what the title might suggest. It's about a young man who grew up in the Midwest in a farming community, and he became an English professor, and his love of literature, and it kind of follows his travails personally and professionally. That's a great one. I love Confederacy of Dunces, John Kennedy Toll's book. That's a fun book. I just finished a book. I wouldn't call it one of my favorites, but it was a pretty good read. It was called The China Groove, or The Chinese Groove, I think, by Catherine Ma. Really nice story of immigrant coming to America and learning to adapt to our culture while continuing to blend his own culture into his life. It's hard to pinpoint, but those are a few that come to mind.
Thanks for sharing all of those with us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Ms. Stewart?
Thank you so much for your interest in serving on the library board. The number one qualification to be on the library board is to like the library board, and I think you kind of love the library.
I do.
So thank you so much for being willing to serve. This, as Kara said, is a really it's a really unique opportunity, and I know that the library is another place where a lot of programming has returned. And since we have you both, Miss Simone, as well, I would just ask, while you're here, come back and talk to us a little more frequently. Maybe that's something that, as a new member, if I can send that with you. We have items from the audience every single business meeting, and any member of your board can come and tell us what's going on at the library and coming up for the next month. And we'd love to lend our platform to you a little bit so that you can achieve your mission of making sure folks know what's going on at the library. So come back and visit anytime you like.
Sure,
and thank you so much for willing to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions this evening? All right. Well, thank you so much. There's all smiles all around. Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. We will see you next week.
Very good.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.